Okay, how do you handle somebody in your life that drinks alcohol when you don't drink alcohol? It's a question that I asked the strivers, and I didn't get a lot of feedback with this one, but that's okay. We're not going to get a lot of feedback on all of them. The questions I asked was, what thoughts and feelings dominate your mind, and how do you manage them when you live with someone that drinks heavily? What do you do when they're drinking, and how do you communicate with them when they are drinking? Okay. So one member of Strive came forward and shared her insights. I won't name her because I don't think that's very right, because we're talking about a partner here. But this is what she said. She said that her partner drinks 4 to 5 light beers per night. First of all, I find this really interesting when people talk about beers and the strength of them. I have to be honest, when I was drinking, obviously I knew which beers would get me smashed and which beers were less likely to get me smashed, but I never really delineated. I never really had in my head, oh, this is hardcore beer and this is not. Do you like my nails, by the way? My daughter Zia painted my nails. So whenever people say, oh, light beer, I read that as, oh, it's not that bad because they're light beers. But beers are beers to me. You know, like wine is wine. Alcohol is alcohol. Okay, there's a big difference between having 4 to 5 vodkas a night and 4 to 5 beers. Feels very different, right? But 4 to 5 light beers per night, yeah, that to me is an addiction. If you're drinking 4 to 5 light beers a night or whatever beers it is, that's an addiction. So that is happening in this person's life. And she says that her feelings around the situation ebb and flow. It's not just one constant, it changes. She says that one of the feelings that she gets is frustration and anger. So when she sees him drinking, she gets really frustrated and angry because he can't see the damage that he's doing to himself and his relationships. I have superimposed that last part. So our striver said can't see the damage. I think maybe she's referring to the physical damage that's going on with him. But I actually feel, being in this situation myself, that the damage when you're drinking alcohol to this degree, it's not just your own damage. You're damaging the people who are in the house. I mean, that is addiction. Household addictions. It's a very real thing. It affects the entire household. And you know, this person's saying that she gets really frustrated and angry that he can't see this damage, right? And she uses the word so clueless. Like, how can you be so clueless about this? You know? Now think about this, right? This person would likely get into an argument. Oh, yeah, let's move on actually, because we run into this actually. She said she also gets angry at his self-righteousness of defending drinking. And he will make it out that she's the one who has the problem, not him, because she can't moderate. So he'll be there saying, I'm fine. I haven't got a problem with drinking my 4 to 5 beers a night. You're the one who's got a problem because you can't drink 4 to 5 beers a night. Well, we know if you are taking a 1,000 days sober experience, that's one of the 5 ends of justifications, right? He's justifying his use and his reasons to drink alcohol. That's what all addicts do. He's defending himself. He's denying that he has an issue and a problem, and he's actually projecting his shame onto his partner by saying, I'm not the person who has a problem, you're the person who has a problem, right? Now think about that for a minute, okay? So here he is saying, I haven't got a problem, you're the one who's got a problem. The alcohol and drinking that alcohol and the way that alcohol disconnects you from your partner means that the relationship whilst he's drinking is going to be affected in a negative sense, right? It's no doubt about it. And think about it. Let's say it takes him 3 to 4 hours to drink 4 to 5 beers, right? 3 to 4 hours. When the average bloke finishes work, how much time do they really have between the time they finish work and the time they go to bed? 3 to 4 hours for a lot of people fills up that entire time. if you're drinking 4 to 5 beers a night, 7 days a week, that means you're filling up all of your time, your personal and private time with your kids, and your personal and private time with your partner and yourself. You're filling it up with with alcohol. And although this driver says that he's not like noticeably drunk, and she doesn't change her interactions with him as a result of that. Like, he doesn't get angry, he doesn't get fucking sad, he doesn't get stupid. Some people just drink and you don't really see much of an effect. But inside what is going on is really important to understand, right? So we drink alcohol because in existence, in our world, there is an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system. And that belief system perpetuates the myth that drinking a powerful poison, a drug, one of the most addictive drugs in the world, that kills 3.3 million people a year, which is more than war, murder, and terrorism combined, is normal, and that it provides you with so much pleasure that when the pandemic started, people raided the alcohol shelves with the equal fervor of toilet rolls, right? Like, we need this shit so much because it's so important in our life, goes the tale, right? And that invisible, violent, and dominant belief system, which I call alcoholism, is non-relational in its DNA. Non-relational. So this guy who's drinking, we can't talk to him, obviously. We could ask him a question. Do you think when you drink alcohol... Actually, if you're the striver who made this quote, at some point in the future, when he's on a string of abstinence and you feel comfortable to ask him this question, ask him, do you think when you drink alcohol that you connect, it provides a connection to yourself, to your children, and to me? Or do you find that it disconnects you from yourself, your children, or me? And he might not even have the answer to that question, but you could ask him to think about it. I would believe that it disconnects you. It is such a selfish pastime that it does so many things to your body to kind of like switch you off. For just one of them is when you have a drink, your body is then craving and is getting anxious as you get to the bottom of the glass because it wants another drink. It wants to make sure that another drink is coming. So whilst your body is anxious and you keep worrying about the next drink all the time, you're not going to be 100% present and focused. And that's nothing to say to the fact that you're getting a little bit loopy. You're losing your compos mentis a little bit, and you're drifting further and further to la la land, even if you do not appear to be a drunk, right? That's just the way it goes. So for me, that leads to disconnection. It doesn't lead to connection. The more you drink, the further you move away from connection with people. Okay? Alcoholism is an invisible, violent, dominant belief system is non-relational. So the antidote has to be relational. It has to be improving your relational literacy. To steal a phrase from Melanie Joy's fantastic book, Getting Relationships Right. And that is what we're doing now. We're improving your relational literacy, right? Back to our striver, and she said the other feeling that she does have, because she said her feelings ebb and flow, is compassion. She realizes when she looks at him that she used to do the same thing. She used to suffer from the same death effect. And when she taps into that empathy, when she can remember what it was like for her to be clueless, she can have compassion with him. Okay? And I think that is one of the main takeaways you should take from this. If you're really struggling with someone in your house who's drinking alcohol, the first thing you need to do is have compassion. You need to tap into that empathy. You need to think to yourself, what was I feeling and what was I thinking when I was drinking like that? And it could be, in my case, I wasn't thinking and I wasn't feeling when I was drinking like that. And that in itself you can have compassion with, because you're getting angry because he's clueless. You're getting angry because he doesn't understand. You're getting angry because he's becoming disconnected from you and alienating you and you cannot interact with him, etc., etc., etc. But you used to do exactly the same thing. Okay? So we can have compassion in that. The thing that the striver says she tries to do is be a role model. She's a role model, But attached to this, being a role model, is also the hope that eventually he will be inspired to change. And that is that's a shame. I think that's a part of this whole thing that doesn't sit well with me. You know, is that we are trying to be role models. We're trying to do the best we can, but there is that kind of hope that the person who we're with is going to stop drinking. You know, and I don't know. For me, when I was in that position, there was a bit of desperation to that hope as well. You know, and again, it would create anger because I'd be like, why isn't this person willing to do this and make this sacrifice for our relationship? Why is a bottle more important than me? I used to say that a lot. I remember saying, I got divorced because my wife loved alcohol more than me. I've said it so many times, right? And that's really unfair because alcohol is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. We all found it so difficult to get over it, those of us who did. So, you know, we need to have that compassion, right? We need to have that compassion. There's obviously an issue here with children. So as the children are growing up in a family, they've got this role model who thinks that it's okay to come home from work and to just drink themselves to sleep. And especially bad role model for young lads because they'll just want to copy their dad and think that it's okay. And there is, I'm sorry, but this also smacks of patriarchalism to me. If the guy is in a relationship, he's just coming home after work and he's drinking his beers and just slobbing around, who's cleaning the house, who's doing the dinner, who's doing the dishes and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, you could have a drunk, comes home, has his 5 beers, there's a bowl of laughs around dinner table, he does all the dishes while he's still drinking, he's playing games with the kids and all that kind of stuff, but it's not normally the case, is it? It's normally the case. If I've been at work, I've done my bit, I'm going to have my beers now while you, wife, go and clean up and do your wife thing. Oh. You know, that's what it's normally like. So, you know, our Striver says she has to be the role model for the children. She has to be the one that balances that, you know. And I know in my previous relationship with my son Jude, he could see his mum drinking, he could see his dad not drinking, okay? And there's no cognitive dissonance there between should I be like my mum or my dad. There's peer pressure from his friends to drink, you know, and a willingness and a desire for him to control rather than abstain. But man, it would have been so much different if I was drinking. My boy would be in a lot of trouble right now, a lot of trouble, because he would be out with me a lot. I would be really asking him to drink. It would be in a lot of trouble. It's not an exaggeration to say that me in choosing to stop in drinking alcohol will have impacted his life without him even knowing it in immeasurably positive ways. Okay, she said she doesn't let his routine impact hers if he's drinking, you know, whatever. Like she just disconnects from him. But think about what I said. You know, he's drinking. He's gonna fill up most of the night, right? So that's pretty sad. Like, what happens to that relationship? You know, it's not really a relationship of connected bliss, love, and intimacy if you can't, like, connect with your partner. Okay, so that is really, really, really a challenge. But the caveat to that is the Striver is saying he doesn't noticeably get drunk, so I don't communicate with him any differently. So it's not like she's avoiding him. She's still having conversations with him. But I still would question anybody who's drinking 4 or 5 beers a night. You're not really talking to your husband, you're talking to the demon that's taken over your soul until you get sober again. To pinch a phrase from the temperance movement. So that was that Striver. Stella says once the person's gone past the point of no return, they don't talk to you. They're not interested in you. They're in a drunk world. And she said that she has very strong boundaries and she doesn't waste any time talking to drunk people because they won't remember what she's saying anyway. Here. You know, I'm the same. But it is very difficult when you're in a relationship with somebody. Stella is one of those people who stopped drinking alcohol, went on her own journey, and her husband decided to do the same without any pressure from her whatsoever. That hope manifested itself into reality, and that's a really good thing. What do I have to say about this? I think it really depends on how you stop drinking, first and foremost. So, for example, if you just decided right through willpower to just stop drinking, it might not bother you that much that your partner's still drinking. It might not, especially if they leave you alone and they're not encouraging you to drink, or they're not ridiculing your decision to drink. The problem you have is if you come to 1000 Days Sober and you become someone who doesn't drink alcohol through our educational platform, support system, and philosophy, it does become a problem because we view the world and we see alcoholism as an invisible, violent, dominant belief system. So these differences become ideological. Like they become a clash of worldviews. And that then gets to the moral and ethical uses of alcohol, and it gets so much more complicated. So it's much more difficult to see somebody drinking when you're drinking, because it goes against everything that you believe is wrong. If you think that like people who drink moderately are causing a lot of damage in the world because our children see the moderate drinkers, think that it's acceptable to drink this powerful poison, and then start trying to drink moderately but then become addicted, like if you think like that and your partner's drinking moderately, that's going to be an ideological difference for you. That's a worldview clash right there. You're going to find that really, really challenging. Okay, so that is something to be really mindful about. It's a powerful thing to learn this philosophy because it helps you to stop drinking, but it's also, if not wielded correctly, could cause havoc in your relationships. I can tell you how not to talk to people when they're drinking, because I lost a marriage through this. I lost a marriage because we couldn't communicate effectively and that we had grown apart from each other. But alcohol had a big role to play in it. You can't preach to them. That's one thing that I did do in my first marriage. I preached and preached and preached and preached, and I got angry through my preaching as well. Don't shame them. I shamed my first wife. I shamed her consciously, in the hope that I could get her to change through fear and just shame. And I shamed her subconsciously. I wasn't even aware that I was shaming her half the time. So, as David D. Burns says, the author of The Feeling Good, the New Mood Therapy, and as we work on in the thought phase of the 1000 Days Sober Experience on resistance, the more you try to get somebody to do something that they want to do, the more they're going to fight against it. So the way the death effects works and the way alcoholism is an invisible, violent, dominant belief system works, if you think that alcohol is normal and pleasurable and we come along and try to tell you otherwise, you're just strengthening their belief system. So you're actually doing damage to your cause. If you want your partner to stop drinking and you start preaching to them or trying to get them to change, you're actually going to solidify their desire to drink. So have a think about that. You do have to find compassion. You do have to understand and remember the death effect. That's why 1000 Days Sober Experience helps you prepare for that. You also need a support system so you can talk to people who are like-minded, who are going through a similar situation. So you can use that as an outlet instead of using your partner who's drinking as an outlet. And you can also prepare scripts in advance so you know what to say to your partner when it comes time to talk about these things. You do have to be a role model, though. You do have to continue doing what you're doing. It's your journey. Don't let the other person rock your boat or start drinking just because they are thinking that it's going to improve your relationship. Because like I said earlier on, when your partner drinks and you don't, that leads to disconnection. Okay, it's non-relational. But when you drink to bridge that gap and to create connection, you're just making it worse. You're making it even more non-relational because now you're both in a selfish act and you're both in your own heads and you're both suffering from anxiety and stress because you're waiting for the next drink and you're both going closer and closer to blackout and sleeping and being drowsy and not being with it, right? So a lot of people think that they drink to connect when subconsciously they're drinking to disconnect because the body knows you're going to be so distant. So just be very, very aware of that. You need to really strongly reevaluate your values and the purpose of your relationship. And this is really challenging for people, okay? Because very often we get stuck with the sunk cost fallacy. We believe that romanticism is the key, that we've set our vow, that the person will get better. Basically, the pain of being in this relationship with someone who has 4 or 5 beers a night is nothing compared to the pain of getting divorced from that person, from sharing your children, from leaving the home and setting yourself up. And this is equally more complicated for women, I think, because I would, well, I'm guessing here, so this is probably wrong of me, but in my own personal experience, it's still, we still live in that nuclear family stereotype where the guy is the guy who works and the woman is the person who stays at home and looks after the kids. Even through lockdown, I read a note the other day that said that during lockdown, women are looking after children and doing the housework more than men, even though they're both at home working. It's like, it's so fucked up, right? So we do have to reevaluate our values and what is important to us in a relationship. And we do have to turn around and say, am I getting what I want out of this relationship? And if you're in a relationship with someone who's drinking all the time and you're not, and that drinking all the time is going to fill up a lot of time and take them away from you, it's really hard to see how that relationship works. So then you've got to ask yourself, how important is not drinking to my relationship? Is it a deal breaker or not? And basically what we're saying is, are we happy just being miserable and disconnected from our partners for the rest of our life? Or until they reach an age where to them drinking is no longer holds any value, which according to Stanton Peel's research happens to a lot of people. And I was reading some statistics yesterday that once you get to 35, that's when you start really questioning the value of drinking, and ages of 35 onwards, the amount of people who are having a real problem with alcohol starts to plummet. Not plummet, but it starts to descend. So you got to ask yourself, is this the right thing to do? And for me, I'll give you my example, and you might have experienced something similar. I got to the point in my first relationship where I refused to go out with my wife socially. I just refused. If she was going to drink, I wasn't going out with her. I even forced her to go to her mum's. So if she was going out on a Saturday night, for example, I would say to her, okay, it's cool, you can go out, but you're not coming back home. You have to go and sleep at your mum's. And we would set that up beforehand. And you might think, well, that's fucking out of order. What kind of dictator are you? The arguments and the fights, the physical scraps, the mental damage that would happen when that person came home, not entirely 100% due to her drinking, but due to my inability to be able to handle someone who's drinking in the height of their drunkenness, when I'm angry and frustrated and annoyed and sad and they're in my face and I can't control them and they can't control themselves. It's diabolical. So the best idea for me was just go out of the way. But then you realize, well, hang on a minute, what kind of relationship do we have here? It's a relationship built on shame. So that's really, really tragic, and it's no wonder my relationship didn't happen. I was ashamed of my wife, and she knew that. Okay, and that's not a good sustenance for a relationship. What you do have to do is you have to try to become allies. Okay, I'm going to make a quote from Melanie Joy's book Beyond Beliefs, which is actually a book about how vegans and non-vegans communicate effectively. But it's a great book to read for alcohol. She also has another book called Getting Relationships Right, which doesn't focus on veganism, it just focuses on relationships. But this particular part and aspect on allyship in Beyond Beliefs is really good. She says, an ally stands beside you even if your paths are different. An ally has your back even if your cause is not the same. An ally may not share your views, but they fully understand and respect those views, and they fully support and respect you for who you are and what you believe. Okay? An ally stands beside you even if your paths are different. An ally has your back even if your cause is not the same. An ally may not share your views, but they fully understand and respect those views, and they fully support and respect you for who you are and what you believe. And in order for you to create allyship in your relationships, you are going to have to improve your relational literacy to help your partner see that you are somebody worthy of respect, and that your decision, even if they don't agree with it, they have to respect the massive change that you've just done. And they have to understand that as someone who drinks, when they don't, that is going to be problematic. And they should have a lot of empathy for it, because the fact that you are not drinking is causing them incredible discomfort in a lot of cases, right? So that's what you need to do. That is the main thing here. You need to come to a position where you both look at each other as allies. And if you can't do that, then you really need to seriously consider whether or not the relationship is worth holding on to, which is something that's really sad, but it's a true fact. There are too many people in the world in relationships that are not working for them. Again, a caveat, I actually think all relationships are dysfunctional. I think everybody's in a screwed up relationship, but I think it's, unless you're talking about it, I think it's a real problem. We need to be able to say, yes, I can talk to my partner about these things. We really have to. Otherwise, we have Bob Hope. If you've got any questions on any of this, then please let me know. If you want to improve your relational literacy and you want to learn how to go 1000 Days Sober, then pop over to www.1000dayssober.com and read the bits and pieces that we have on there, and join our email list and join Strive and 1000 Days Sober. It's £40 a month, and you can cancel your subscription at any time. In the meantime, you answer these questions. What thoughts and feelings dominate your mind, and how do you manage them? Living with someone that drinks heavily. What do you do when they're drinking? And how do you communicate with them when they are drinking? And also share what was helpful that I spoke about today. Thanks very much, as always, for listening. If you have any question you want me to broach with the Strivers, just let me know. Thanks.